are live. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the NABLL Weekly Update. This week we have Tony Gray and Rich Hodge, two of the board members, but I originally met you guys with the Golden Bears, and that is a pretty phenomenal program you guys have started down there. Would one of you like to kind of give us the quick breakdown of how you guys got together? Because you guys didn't really know each other before you got into all this.
I'll let Rich explain this. He's a better explain this story. He's the social guy for the Golden Bears.
You flipped it to me. Okay.
Yeah.
So we do have like a bunch of friends in common locally. So we I think we always had like 6 degrees of separation. But I think it was Joyner, right? So Joyner was working on the NABLL, his local box lacrosse league in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and he was trying to get Tony to join it and to host a team. And so he was like, you and Tony should really get together and work on this. You guys would work together. You work together well. And so we kind of did. And I'm just thinking, I was just flashing back, Tony, to when we started our first tryout outdoors in Purcellville. There's this little rink outside in Purcellville that we went to, and we'd never met any of the guys. We'd no clue what to expect. And we had a good number of those original Bears were there, and we were doing drills, and it was beautiful. It was outside. The weather was nice. It was, I was just thinking like what a cool experience that was. I remember looking at Tony and we were trying to figure out who was who, and we're like, should we film them? Should we have them do an intro? Like, how do we figure out who these guys are so we don't cut the wrong people? Like.
And you guys
we didn't have many guys at the first. It slowly built, right? So we started doing a couple.
We had like 15 or 20 guys at that original. Like Killian was at that original one. AK was at that original one. And I think Dave Solomon was like at that original one. Like we did like Mike McDonald was there. So I feel like that first one, like Javen was there. I think like we had some real OGs that were there. So it was fun. Like we were doing a lot of cool drills they'd never done before. So, and they kind of, a lot of those guys started to get the fever.
So. Yeah. And I mean, pretty much so many of these NABLL teams are essentially you get a bunch of field guys and guys that just love lacrosse. And then a lot of teams are lucky enough to end up with somebody like Tony, who, just happens to be coaching Team Mexico. But not everybody gets somebody quite that qualified. But you see it throughout this league. There is so many legends around. Tony, if you wouldn't mind, just giving us a little bit of your background. And then so you coach for Team Mexico now, but like, how did you end up there? Because you didn't grow up down in the Virginia area.
No, so I'm upstate, St. Regis Indian Reservation, Akwesasne. I grew up with a stick in my hand, lacrosse all around me, box was all around me. I didn't start playing box till late. I think it was like 8th grade. I went to 1 million games before I started playing, and I just started playing box and field at the same time, and just picked it up really quickly just because I guess I didn't realize, but I've always had kind of a coach's mind as a player. So I just very analytical when I played. And so I did really well with that. And then went up to Hobart, got an opportunity to play for Hobart and for field lacrosse and Division III powerhouse at the time. That was pretty cool after taking a short stint in the private prep school, Northfield Mount Herman. And so I started doing that, and I played for the Toronto Beaches while I was at Hobart in the summer, and played for the Rochester Nighthawks. I think it was shortly after college was over for their first season. And then met my college sweetheart at Hobart. And so she's had a public policy degree. She was 1 grade behind me. So she said she got a full ride to go to Michigan for grad school. Her only requirement was she had to do an internship in Washington, D.C. So I wasn't really doing anything, just kind of being a lax rat. And so I said, I'll follow you to DC and then I'll go to Michigan with you. Well, when I got here, she was doing her classes and internship, and I was just sitting around. I was like, oh, I can't sit around all summer. So I ended up getting a job and fell in love with the place. And I told her, I'll see you when you get back. And so just played here locally, field lacrosse in the different areas, and didn't really start coaching. Like coaching and teaching, the 2 things I do now, was the last thing I ever thought about ever becoming. Like I wanted to become an accountant. And somebody was like, yeah, your personality does not fit becoming an accountant. so I'm glad I didn't go that route. But then I think my boss at my job just saw my interaction with people and with kids, and they're like, she went to William and Mary from an education degree. She says, I think you'd be a really good teacher. And then being also playing in the area.
He is, by the way, he is a very good teacher, by the way.
Well, thank you. Being in the area, playing from just coming out of Hobart, and we won a couple of championships there. People started asking like, why don't you start coaching? And I remember that I went to go for a pickup game, walked up to the field, and it wasn't a pickup game. It was a youth league game. I was all annoyed that I drove all this way to Great Falls, which in reality is not that big of a deal. But when I first moved here, it was kind of a big deal. And then I was about to leave, and I said, you know what? I'm going to stay because somebody's got to know where I can play lacrosse. So at the end of the game, I saw, I don't even know who, I went up to them. I think it was Earl Brewer, who coaches Langley, who's won 4 state championships here. And I asked him like where I could play. And he's like, oh, you can play with this club team. So I was like, okay. And then people started asking, where are you from? And they're like, would you want to coach? I'm like, no, not really. They're like, but we need help. They're like, just run the drills you ran in college. I said, you want me to run drills with 4th graders? They were 3rd and 4th grade at the time. You want me to run college drills? They're like, well, I'm sure you had stick drills that you guys did, right? But do you think you can teach a kid to catch and throw? I said, oh, I could do that. That's not hard. So they're like, well, why don't you just come to one of my practices? So I have a hard time saying no to things. I said, okay, I'll do it, because I was all happy I found a team to play on. And then during that same thing, I also had a high school coach ask me to do the same thing. So I said yes, because my wife was now in Michigan. My wife now, but girlfriend at the time, she was going to Michigan. So I was like, I had all this time in the world. So in one day, I found a club team to play on. I started volunteering for a youth league organization, and I was assistant offensive coach for a high school program. And that was kind of the start of my coaching career. And it just took off. And I realized it was fun. I treat lacrosse like problem solving. I love it's like playing chess. You get to figure out there's a dilemma, and you have to figure out how to fix it on the fly. And I think that's, if you say one of the strengths that come for me and most of my staffs, is that our ability to figure out on the fly how to adjust to a situation in game time. And so that's probably the long version of the story.
No, it's the perfect version.
Buddy, that's a good version.
Absolutely.
He left out the part where he went on to become a 3 or 4-time Virginia state champion for his high school, right, Tony? Was it 3 or 4 rings?
We won 3 state championships. We were in 5 state championships out of 8 years, and we had 7 district titles and 4 region titles. So it was a good run. It was like a storybook start for me once I got into like Oakton when we had 8 years. When I was with them 8 years, I could not write the script any better.
He had some very, very good teams, Greg. He's being very, very humble, but good players, good coaches. Like they were, and the problem solving piece is always one of his trademarks, I think, with players, where the players, you've got 10 coaches basically on the field that can figure out the scenarios. So,
yeah, no, it's impressive to see, and the way you guys troubleshoot problems is I mean, that's kind of how this league started. So essentially, you guys had started the Golden Bears, and you had 1 year with the Golden Bears in the IBLA before you guys decided that was, after what had happened with the Nationals and everything, and you guys started this. And so how did you guys feel as the Golden Bears? Obviously, you didn't make it to the Nationals. You're going to want to achieve that. But other than that, how was it for your first year?
Our first year, we actually did make it to Nationals. It was last year we didn't make it to Nationals. The first year we did, and that
Right.
was
Yeah, I just
Oh,
meant.
you mean the first year with as an NABLL? Yeah,
Yes, yes, that's
you're
what I'm
right.
saying.
Sorry,
Is more of a board member
yeah,
question as far as like how did you guys feel as like GMs of the Golden Bears and as board members of the NABLL, how the season went. That, and I was just saying, other than obviously you wanted to bring the Golden Bears to the national
yeah.
championship, it just didn't quite work out this year.
Well, we made a couple decisions, right? So when we were that first year, even though we made it, we had a lot of guys in our ears saying the Friday nights are no good. Friday nights are no good, right? And we need a different day to do it, and they were throwing everything at us, right? And so Rich and I made a decision to try to do it on weekends the following, and actually, pretty much our whole region decided to do that. Well, it worked well for, I think, really for the Wild had the best situation where their guys were just totally locked in. They came in week in and week out. Where our guys, our team specifically has a lot of guys that coach travel, and they coach at really high levels, and so they can't really squeak out of that, right? So our roster spots we were if we got 16 on a weekend playing 2 games, we were pretty lucky, right? And to play
We were
16 two
we were
games,
we were we were calling up some of the salty veterans in their
yeah,
late 30s, early 40s. These guys were like, "You want me to play?"
yeah. So that was kind of a decision that we made, and it didn't work well with the players, and I think our region also agreed it didn't work out overall. So this year we're going to do Thursday nights. So that way we solved the Friday problem and then the weekend problem. But of course, you got adults with very busy schedules. So we're still going to have a ton of conflicts, but we feel like we can at least put a full roster. That was what was most frustrating for me as a coach standpoint, not even having a full roster. Like you couldn't really do much X's and O's when they were just coming to the bench, huffing and puffing. And you can't tell guys when they're exhausted to do things that that are going to be successful to win the game. When they're just they're trying to survive. Like if you have to press, they're not going to be able to press if they're tired and stuff like that. So that was last year was a challenge, right? But the good thing was we had a lot of guys that are interested in the Golden Bears from our senior A program. Last year we had senior A, we had a senior B, we had a master's, and we had a college thing. So we had a lot of guys in the system, and so a lot of guys came back for this Thursday night. So we're
I
hoping.
think we're learning how to build the summer calendar here on the
Yeah.
East Coast. Like, you know, um, outdoor travel is just the king, the summer, and they go, literally we just ended with Memorial Day weekend. There'll be events starting every weekend from now until the middle of July.
Well,
Um,
in the area that you guys are coming from, that is essentially what their flavor of lacrosse is, though, is just that summer
yeah,
travel every weekend, and that's a big reason why you have the field players and the skill level and the talent that comes out of there is because there's so much competitive,
there's
lacrosse.
there's a ton of travel. These kids start playing when they're young. They're playing Hoko in the spring, and then I mean, as soon as their spring season is done, like they're all in on these travel teams. So it's kind of crazy. Like we've had to learn. Last year we started the U.S. Box NCBS team. You got all these college kids. They all need jobs and have to work. And then this year we're expanding that and like just learning where box kind of fits in. I think we've kind of figured out the season truly starts like after the 4th of July. And you've got like 6 weeks to kind of get it in. Um, but like there's definitely I think there's definitely a good time for it during July. I think people are willing. It's like a good time for everybody to kind of do it, and then you kind of everyone then at the end of summer's ready. They go to Placid or wherever, and then their summer season's kind of done.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's one thing you guys did is you shortened the season up significantly as far as the regional playoffs now start August 7th through the 13th, and the national championship will be the 25th through the 27th. Essentially wrapping everything up early enough so the college guys, the guys that coach at college or coach at these travel teams, it's really before fall ball season. It's going to, completely fire up, and yeah, I think the schedule is going to work out great. I see that you guys. It looks like what you picked up the Maryland Arrows. And Charm City, was that a team in your division last year too, or is that another new team?
Charm City's new. Yeah,
Okay,
the
the
Arrows.
Arrows.
That's Joiner's team. They've been around for quite a while.
Gotcha. All right, so that's I had them screwed up. The Arrows is the one that a lot of people give credit to him for kind of starting box lacrosse and getting things going down there, and he's been around for quite a while. Now, the Charm City team, is that a new team this year, or is it just new to the NABLL?
So they're a new team, right? So Andrew Kim, who was on our squad the first year when we went to nationals, and then he went over to the Wild and won the championship last year with them. And then we knew, both programs knew him very well, and we're like, if we know we have a lot of players in the area, we said we think we're ready for expansion. So I gave Andrew a call, and Rich gave him a call as well. And we said, look, we think there's space for a fourth one. I think you're the guy that can kind of put it together. And would you be, would you be interested in that? And we kind of had to twist his arm a little bit. We basically said we're going to make it work so that you'll be successful.
He still wants to play, right? He's like still pretty young. Yeah. He was like, I still really want to play, and I'm not 100% sure if I want to like move away from being a player. But it was really neat. He got to play with a bunch of the Wild guys, and then he had some buddies that were also on the Arrows. So like Charm City's, it's gonna kind of be, some guys from all three teams. So I think it's going to be a nice mesh of different guys, and I mean we're just so excited that we were able to build another team, and we hope more teams will grow, and if we could get to like a 16 conference, or it's growing here.
Even just having 4 makes it so much nicer, because when you have a playoff, when you've got 3, you got to beat one team 2 or 3 times, depending on how your playoffs is set up. And having 4 just makes it that much more competitive. That was a problem that the Yeti had last year, was that the Riverhawks, essentially, because they were largely a college team, they were out as soon as the playoffs were underway. And they played the Eels, which was a great game, and it definitely benefited the Yeti, but they also, I'm sure, would have liked another game heading into nationals to kind of get fired up. But that Oswego team, I tell you, they're going to be the most improved team. I can't wait to see what they do at Battle on the Barge. That's going to be. Now, did you guys play against them when you came up?
I think we did.
Yeah, Utica and Oswego were the 2 teams we played. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it was a pretty good game, and I remember them being like some pretty aggressive young college guys. It was good.
They've got a lot of young stud athletes that have learned a lot about box lacrosse. By the end of the year, when we went up to that final Yeti game up there, it was a much different game, and the Yeti lost, and it was not that close of a game. It was hot. It's crazy up in that rink too. It's really hot, and you've got a bunch of 20-year-old kids, and that's one thing that the Yeti last year, I believe Paul said he's got it addressed this year. We'll see, but they have a slightly aged team, a seasoned team, and they kind of slow down a little bit in the.
Is he getting younger or older? Is I guess my question.
They're supposed to be getting younger. They've brought in some young studs. I know they've got some guys traveling from all over the place. Now, what did you guys do? Essentially, I know you're addressing the schedule and tuning things up. Is that basically the best way you found to get the players that you needed to show up for your team, and getting the best players available?
Definitely helped. Yeah, the Thursdays helped. But I think in our area, I think it's just going to be that there's always going to be conflicts. You got kids, they're young. They're, you joke around. It's the weddings, right? The bachelor parties. What else do they always have? Like
the beach, like
the beach,
weekends,
graduations.
There's a million things that drags these kids off. So it's always an adventure. But one of the cool things, like we're gonna have tryouts next week for the college kids, so hopefully that'll unlock some ringers for Tony to look at. Those kids can play into the senior team, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. Now, Tony, as you've kind of developed as a coach now, what do you think the most important thing to learn coming from the field game into the box? Because I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of guys try to make that transition. What do you think is the biggest thing that needs to be addressed as a player?
Probably the first thing is field players are so used to getting on that 45-degree angle up top and like sweeping towards the middle, just like you saw the championship weekend. There was so many middies getting to the middle, and in box, that just hurts you when you get to the middle because they just keep sweeping all the way across and they take their angles out. So a lot of these guys are so used to going left and right hand. You got to get them staying in one hand and staying on their side of the floor. So everything's tighter, and they're used to the field with so much space too. So I would say timing and keeping them on the same side of the floor is probably the biggest thing. Defensively, it's a little easier transition because there's so much picking in the college game that it's more natural for them to play box and just cover the angles. It's just a little don't help as much as you would in field. It's like play your side, trust your guys, and just play that 2-man game or 3-man game, and only slide if you have to. Because if you kind of sit and wait and watch the other side, it's going to be zipping across to your guy, and he's going to score a goal. So that would be probably the first identifiers we talk about, and then we just talk about second stage would be like your shooting, right? These guys want to blast because they're 30 yards out in that game, and we tell them as soon as you cross the blue line, you're in shooting position. So it's all snapping the wrist and placement, right? So we don't need you going 120-mile-an-hour shot. We need you an accurate shot. So those are coming to me.
One of the things I've noticed is you need to be like a 5-tool guy always, right? Like in field, there's a lot of like downtime where they can kind of catch their breath and just chill. And I think in box, like you're either setting a pick, you're moving, you're balancing the floor. You've got to do a lot of fundamental things that in field you just don't have to do. You're like, whatever your shift is in 90 seconds, like you're moving the whole time and you're working. There's no plays off. And I think when the guys kind of figure that out, you start to see the offense just completely change. It goes from a bunch of guys just standing on the floor to all of a sudden they're balancing, they're rotating the ball, start swinging it back and forth. You really start to see them figuring it out.
Yeah, no, the position aspect of it, and it is so tight, like you said, everybody's at shooting position from in the blue line, and that really with an accurate shot. Now those big, that's one thing you get. Tim actually talked about it last week was when you have those field guys come, everybody cranks it and they just rip it right into the goalie shin guards or the leg pads, and out you get a 50-foot rebound. It comes all the way off, and it's going over. Yeah, it's definitely quite the experience. But like you were saying, now the basketball with the several picks and the rolls, now that offense seems to translate a little bit better. Uh, have you guys noticed as far as do you guys probably don't get a lot of older guys that just jump into box lacrosse? I'm guessing you guys have all field players.
No, I mean we have a good blend of guys that have some box experience. Now it may not be like the Can-Am type of box experience, but we got a lot of guys that have played for a while and have, I think, watched the NLL because it's been publicized. I mean, televised for so many years now. Kind of watch it and broke it down and can play at a pretty high level, and you can tell they have the box experience. And then, of course, we have the blend of guys coming in super athletic field guys that we got to kind of tone them down a little bit.
Yeah, they get a little excited out there. Now, what do you guys think the biggest thing as far as for the NABLL moving forward into this next season? Uh, like what will you really consider a successful season? Like what are you guys looking to improve as board members of the NABLL? Very successful season last year. Nationals, I mean, there was some issues, but there really wasn't any major hiccups. I was wondering if you guys felt maybe there was something that you guys saw because I know you guys did the comment cards and kind of let everybody tell you what they thought they wanted changed.
I think some of the things that for me that worked well was allowing the regions to kind of do their own things, and we kind of sat back a little, trying to learn the dynamics of each region and the players in it. Like when I mean players, the GMs, and trying to figure them out. I think going into year 2, we have a better understanding of who the GMs are in the area, kind of how they operate their styles, and so we can stay on top of things a little better than we probably did last year. So I would say a little bit more of the governorship would be probably be a little cleaner this year. I'm trying to think. Rich, I'll let you speak. I had another idea, but it kind of slipped me right now.
I think just trying to be a players league. Like, I think like it's not always easy. Like, I think we as a board, consistently, like, we'll call each other out and be like, is that actually like good for the players? Like when we're having our meetings and our chats about trying to make decisions. I think we're very like methodical about what we want to do. Proposing change. Like, is it actually going to be good for us? So
Yeah, no, I think you guys kind of nailed it, and then you guys seem to spend a ton of time on the refs, but I don't want to get too deep into that because I know that wasn't your guys' thing really, and we're going to talk to
and
hopefully Dave next week. But
and I think we have some really exciting news coming from Dave. I mean, Dave deserves a lot of kudos. He's put a lot of time and energy, and I think when he starts to unveil some of what he's accomplished, everyone's going to be super excited. Like, I've only heard a little tiny bit of it, but I mean, I just really excited to hear what Dave's accomplished, and he's put a lot of energy into it. And anybody that knows Dave, like, he's all in. So I'm very excited to see like some of the news that's going to come out of this.
yeah, no, I'm super excited. I've talked to him. I've talked to one of the head officials from over this way, and hopefully we're gonna get him on. But they absolutely love what you guys are doing. They've got nothing but great things to say. But more something that I think you guys can kind of speak on a little bit, especially Tony, would be you guys are offering different things through the league as far as you've had your like talk of the town and your coach meets or like development things to kind of help guys learn box lacrosse drills and stuff. I mean, Tony, I'll let you kind of explain what those are a little better than I can.
Yeah. So one of the things, like when we ended the first year, was like we thought we did a really good job of kind of catering to the GMs, and one of our missions was to communicate or over communicate. So we felt like we did a good job with that. So we're like, all right, what's the next step with that? Like, all right, well, how can we develop the players and the teams in regards to like the coaches and the other personnel? And so I kind of pitched an idea to the board that what if we started like a coaching connection program, and really focused on the teams and giving them some more tools, giving them bringing in some speakers to talk to them. And so we've kicked off 2 already. We had Neil Paulus from your area, which he was the first one, and then Rod Jensen, who's we're lucky enough to have on our Team Mexico coaching staff, and he's been with the Langley Thunder, and he's a very accomplished player and coach, and so he kicked off the second one, and so it was great to have 2 kind of different perspectives. And so that we didn't get as much people involved in it as not many people came to see, but we saved them just like we'll save this. And so when they're ready to get some extra resources, they can go to the videos on our NABLL stream. They're both there. And then the other one, which we really haven't kicked off, is the player connection. And that might be something like when you were talking about the weekly update and doing some things coming up in the next couple of months, there might be an opportunity to pull in some players and have them talk about our league from their perspective. And, confident, Greg, you can pull out some good questions and glean some good information from the players. So I think that's 2 things that are really starting to kind of develop. And I think once everybody's playing, then they'll pay attention to it a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Rich for a second, but he fixed himself. He's back, no problem. So, no, I think that
That's not family.
Uh, no, I think that is one of the biggest things. Like you said, you might not have seen the people on it in as far as engaged while you were doing those coach talks, but I think as people learn the resources, as people see the YouTube channel, you're going to get more and more. Now, one thing I don't know much about your second coach that you had, but I know like Neil was a like had that Native American style. Was the other guy, is he Canadian? More like
Yeah, he's Canadian. So Langley Thunder out in Is that British Columbia or
Yeah, it's out west, I think.
Yeah. So he's, I kind of just met him through the Team Mexico thing. And he interviewed for it as well. And so they said, would you be interested in having him staff? And after talking to him and learning about his background, I was like, that's a no-brainer. And we haven't even met Rod yet, right? So we're going to meet Rod on June 10th because Rich is the other. Rich is also on staff, and we got this other guy, Alex Scrift, they call him, up in the New York area. He's going to be our offensive coordinator. Joe French had to bow out just because he was too busy. But we're all going to kind of get together for the first time in, like I said, June 10th. So be excited to see the Team Mexico staff. But just talking to him through all the Zoom calls, it's just obvious he knows his X's and O's. He's a really good guy, probably more important, and I think he's going to be really great for Team Mexico as well as.
I was going to say he has a terrific personality.
Yeah,
he's I keep you giggling like the whole time. He's always like engaged, brings a lot of energy and excitement. Like I've never met him in person, but I can't wait. Like he's just a big teddy bear. Like he just keeps us giggling all the time.
And both of those coaches, in just those 2 hours that we had with them total, they must have brought 12 to 14 different drills that are so different. And I've already used those drills with our Golden Bears, and you could just see the excitement. It was like a little different flair, right? And that's one of the things that I'm always paying attention to is how can you make something better? Like I'm not one of those guys that thinks my way or the highway. I am gonna a teacher, beg, borrow, and steal anything that I think is good.
That's
my team.
Lacrosse, I've heard from so many people, is a game best learned passed down, but it's because everybody has like a different version of it, a different way they play it, a different way they look at the X's and O's. Some people have a very playful background, like backyard kind of fun style. Other people are very strict, and they've play in systems and things are supposed to be structured. And I think that's what makes the game so exciting, is just kind of taking those different versions and melding them together and kind of seeing what happens. And that's one thing that I think the league has done really well, is you guys have provided a ton of young men an opportunity to play with some legends from the sport of lacrosse from so many teams. And I mean, these are just the teams that we directly know guys on. I mean, you've got other teams that have NLL coaches, and you've got guys that have played, in the NLL or around it, and have played in all these other leagues. And then now to see some of these guys get a chance to play and to learn from it. I know a bunch of the PBLA players that I had a chance to talk to, they said that was the biggest thing, was getting the learning experience and the time on the floor from this league. And that's one thing you guys have consolidated it, but you really, like, when you go play a weekend of this, everybody's exhausted. I don't know how the guys do it when they go do these, like, all day tournaments. You go play all day Saturday and then Sunday. That's crazy.
Well, luckily we're the coaches. We're only tired from blowing the whistle. They got to run, but they're youth. It's youth, right? These guys can run all day. You see that, as they get older, then you start to see is like the ice packs coming and the ibuprofen, and all right, I need to stay off my feet till the next game, right? So that
total wax rats though. They don't stop. Like I can't tell you whether they're 25 or 35 or 40. Like these guys, they just absolutely love it. Like I always think of Mike McDonald, like the guy, like he does those ice baths. He'll be jumping. You'll see him during the week jumping into these like freezing cold ice baths, trying to like get ready for games and stuff. Like, I think, these guys are just absolutely dedicated to playing and like, just squeaking out as much lacrosse as they can. They kind of know the clock's on, and it's fun to be a part of. So I think I was going to say Tony deserves some serious kudos for putting this coaching program together. He kind of took on the initiative. He did a really good job with it. I think it's a kind of a resource for the GMs and coaches that I think hopefully will grow. Tony gets really excited and geeked out about this stuff. Like he loves to innovate new stuff, whether it's in practice or games. So it's always fun to watch him get all excited about learning something new or being able to use a new technique. It's like Phil Jackson with his triangle offense, right? Like the zen of lacrosse. So
I
Well,
know one of my faults is sometimes I want to do too many new things. Like something's working good. I'm like, all right, they're going to shut it down in a second. So I better switch. I don't wait till they shut it down. I'm already switching. So sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. Right. So
it's definitely a tough thing to be a coach, and I don't it really goes unnoticed, but that's you see it with a lot of these teams is the teams that have somebody that can kind of sit up from the bird's eye view and kind of keep the players informed as to what's going on, what you're seeing as far as the breaks, when they're doing this, if they're hanging a guy or they're cheating. And that's something that not every team has. You do have quite a few of these teams that play. I like to call it Reggie Dunlop style, where they're out there just with the gear on and still trying to coach. And it does work. I mean, you saw quite a few teams at Nationals that did really well without having a head coach.
yeah, but it is definitely harder because you're exactly right. Because floor version versus being up is totally different, and being able to watch, you know, a different aspect, not always tracking the ball all the time, is kind of hard. So, but it can be done. I completely agree with that, and it has been done. You're right.
Yeah, I just think those people are crazy. I don't know how they do it. But what I'm most excited for here, though, is as we get ready to go, the season's underway. You guys have the live tracker up on the website now. I love seeing that. So the teams will just be able to update their stats, and they'll be within 30 seconds or so. It goes right up into the stream. So anybody who is streaming at any time, if you guys are uploaded, we'll constantly be checking this whenever we're streaming the Eddie games or whatever. We'll try to keep everybody up to date on what's happening around the league.
And that is exactly like the other point. I was when I kicked it over to Rich when I forgot what the other thing was. It was the game management tool. Really, I think people saw the power of it during nationals last year, but during since it was regular season, it was such a new tool. A lot of people didn't utilize it. They were just putting in the score. So that's one of the stressors we really want to make sure people are doing so that we can pick our team of the week and we can put the stats and we can give the awards to the people that are deserved. It wasn't consistent last year, so we had to pull back on a lot of stuff. And when we got to nationals, we were able to control that aspect. That's why you got to see the full power of it. And so that's one of the things that we hoped. Well, we don't hope. We expect the teams to utilize, even if they can't do it right on the fly. The software is designed so that you can actually print out your sheet and fill it out and then just upload it quickly later with the stats and stuff. So it does have that feature with it.
Hang on. So what is that? They just print the stat sheet out and then they get to just fill it out.
Yeah. So you have to, like, before a game, right? So your teams agree like 72 hours or 8 hours before you put your rosters into the system. It locks the rosters in, and then once those rosters are locked in, you can print out a sheet with those rosters. That's essentially, if you've ever gone to any Can-Am games or anything, you see the books that they have or the statisticians keep track of all this stuff. Well, you can just print that. The system, you just literally hit like any other document, file print. It'll print out the stuff for you, and then you can do it by hand during the game or whoever's doing it for you. And then when you're done, you can just upload it. It's easy to upload it into the system.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that way everybody can be up to date because
Yeah.
I know like when they started doing the power rankings last year, everybody was like, "Whoa, I don't know if that's fair," but there was only a handful of teams. Me and Tim talked about this last week where guys were putting it in, but hopefully everybody will keep it up to date. Hopefully everybody gets their schedules submitted so that way we can do this. Now, you guys have made a lot of improvements on this website. I mean, this is you guys completely you shut it down for a little while and it's completely revamped. And no, I think it's awesome, and I think as far as trying to get the players out there, I love the forums that you guys have. Hopefully, I'll get a login here so I can start talking to one of the forums. That's my next thing. But no, I love what you guys are doing with the teams, and as far as how you've really made it player accessible. Now we'll kind of go off into some of the other things. I love hearing what you guys. So you've got Beltway, Lax, Rich, and you guys have all kinds of projects going on. Like how do just tell us a little bit about that? Yeah, it's crazy what you guys have
Uh,
running down there.
Rich, the mad scientist, is cooking up stuff every day. So go, Rich. Tell him.
Listen, my wife's a saint and is very, very patient. And we've got 3 or she's laughing in the background. She loves Beltway. She just cannot tell you how much she loves Beltway. We're very lucky in that I've got a couple of guys that are on staff, like Carlos Bustamante and Grant Leedy, that Grant's one of our co-founders, and Carlos is actually a co-founder now. He did so much work for us over the last year. We kind of looped him in. But I mean, we started an outdoor league last year, Greg. We started with a bunch of the Bears that were kind of like, hey, there's no real good outdoor league. Why don't you start one? And I was like, all right, I think I could probably do that. We started with 6 teams. We literally started, I think, the week before Memorial Day last summer and ended up with we had 120 or 130 players last summer. It was a big hit. We're very lucky because of the Bears. We had all these resources. So we had Dave McClain to take photos, and we kind of knew where to plug people in. We had a lot of people with different strengths that we could rely on and plug in. At the same time last year, we launched the DMV Grays, which was the U.S. Boxla team for the NCBS in this market. We're going to expand on that this year. So literally, Beltway now Monday nights will be adult field. Tuesday nights will be the U.S. Boxla NABLL stuff. We're launching a women's division. We have masters that we play on Wednesday nights, as well as we launched an old school high school summer league on Wednesday nights called Villains. So I didn't want to rip off Heroes. So we thought the next best thing would be Villains. So we're doing a lot. I've got a lot of great people involved, and fun kind of growing the game and as an old boomer now, you're like, why aren't we doing summer league anymore? And people were like, why did you launch one? And I'm like, sounds like a great idea. But they do a lot of travel now in this area, and we were kind of feeling like the multi-sport athlete was getting lost in the weeds. And the football players, the basketball players, the wrestlers, the guys that just maybe don't have a ton of money that aren't going to go play travel, there should be an opportunity for those guys to pick up a stick and have fun. And I'm really nervous that we're driving some of these players out of the game because of socioeconomic factors. The game's supposed to be fun, right? This is a fun game and we love it, and we're doing it to celebrate the creator. I think for me, a lot of this pay to play stuff, the travel stuff, is very worrisome. I want to get back to the fun stuff. This Villains project for the high school league, right? Where we want to play fast, we want to play aggressive, we want the kids to make mistakes and learn from them, and not have the coaches yelling at them, being like, hey, that was a good idea. You just got to execute it a little better. But playing lacrosse, really aggressive, really fast, the NASCAR offense and the defense that I love, which is pushing, all the way to the sidelines and getting aggressive and throwing those checks and, all that good stuff. So.
Well, that's what people want to watch too, though. And the problem is with that travel. I mean, yes, I get what you're saying about pricing people out, but the other thing is when you take that, you don't really allow these kids the ability to do some of that, stuff that the coaches don't want to see. And you see it so much. Like when I watch the Can-Am, the way those guys throw behind the back passes, and then I look at how so many American coaches would be screaming at their kids, but it's like if you developed it appropriately, there is a right time to throw it, and that's why I think so many the fun things, the pickup, like Yeti pickup night is awesome. I wish I could get out there to film it more. Same with Collar City, because that's where you see the really fun, exciting stuff that happens. And I think that's a big thing with the NABLL is you guys. Yes, it's a competitive travel team as far as a lot of the guys out there, but it's also fun enough that at the national championships you had a guy doing a backflip off the plexiglass. You had a beer chugging competition for the face off. I mean, it's just such a perfect combination, and that's really what I think makes lacrosse such a great sport, though. It makes this so great is the ability to do that fun stuff.
Yeah,
the insurance guys probably don't love the beer chugging contest.
Yeah.
It was water. It was water. It was diet, I'm sure.
That's right. It was water.
Greg, I would also say that Rich is like the Jackie Moon of our area. He's as much as he drives me crazy with his fun, because I'm super competitive and I'm like, fun's a byproduct of doing really well. And so like when he comes in, it's like fun, but he does create the Jackie Moon experience. Like the Golden Bears they love whenever Rich is on bringing some flair to them, they flock around him like, all right, Jackie Moon, what are we doing next? Right. But he's also truly very organized. So he's able to do all this stuff and manage it. Like every time I look at it, and I know his wife's in the background, I don't know. She's a saint, right? And so I could not do that. I am not organized to put all that stuff together, but he is, and he knows how to delegate, and he knows how to, put it all together. So I give him a lot of credit to be able to put all this. He put a lot of stuff together, but it's not like it's done subpar. Everything's done really high quality, and I think his sales background comes in, right?
Like the yin and the yang, right? Like Tony's ultra competitive, and I'm really competitive, but like I want everyone to have like the first class experience, right? Like I want everyone to walk away feeling like, holy shit, that was amazing. Excuse my language. And I think we work really well together in that aspect because there's that we're very, very driven and like we want to win. So I was just thinking to myself earlier, Greg, when you were talking, like with field and box, like on defense, right? Like when I was a kid, we played super aggressive. We threw every check in the world. And like nowadays I hear everyone complain about the stick technology and this and that. And I always think in my head, like, well, if your feet aren't right, your stick's not right, right? Like you can push out anywhere you want. As long as your hips and feet are good, you can throw all the checks you want. And I think we have gotten so conservative in our approach to teaching lacrosse. Like we're like, if your lax IQ is good, if you understand where to be and what to do in those situations, like Tony was saying earlier, if they do this, then you do that, right? It's all problem solving. But this is where box lacrosse, I think, is really innovating lacrosse as a whole. And it's bringing a lot of good fundamental traits back into the game that I think we've lost a little bit. I think like, super aggressive D guys understanding like, I can push, I can extend. If my feet are good and I'm in a good place, I can throw these, crazy checks. And we got to watch it over the weekend. It was so exciting, watching the guy from Notre Dame, number 7, I think his name's Fake. He was extending, he was, picking up ground balls and just throwing checks. It was awesome to watch. Like that's fun. Like it's not fun to just, watch guys just pack it in, zone it up, and and just like, I don't know. That's not my. No. I know that there's a time and a place for a zone, but it's not my favorite.
No, so. It's very boring, and well, especially I don't know if you shell in like you said, and everybody sits way back. The aggression and like you said, now one thing that a lot of the leagues are cracking down on, the NLL and the NABLL included, is the off ball slash. There's no that's gone. And there's no, and when they say cross checking, obviously they don't mean it. But like you just said, if your feet are in the right place, if you're pushing a guy and you don't just walk up to him and, smash him a couple times, but if your feet are in the right place and you're actually pushing his body out, that kind of contact is still, I'll let Bill explain it a little better. But I really do like how you guys have tried to implement that and really make it a physically tough game, but not getting the wax.
Well, we wanted to be super competitive. We wanted to be physical, but not over the edge, right? Keep just like you said, and have good experience, like what Rich was saying, right? We want first class and walk away with a good experience, right? So we feel like we did that year 1. So year 2, hopefully we can continue to build on that.
Are we getting any closer to a nationals date?
Yes, we're Nationals date. Yeah, August 25th, 27th. You got us on that one. You heard it first on here. No, we do have one locked in, but we can't announce it yet. But we do have it. We've all agreed on it. It's one of those formalities where we got to dot the I and cross the T and all that. But we do have something. So hopefully by your next guest, we'll be able to put it on there. But
fingers
we
crossed.
can stay in the Midwest. So
yeah, they're working hard to button up the contract and make sure that it's a first class experience for us. I think like Ohio was awesome last year. There were things we learned walking away, and I think those conversations have been prevalent, in everything that we've been trying to do for nationals. So
we can say that it's kind of hard to put on a big tournament with the arenas in the U.S. Like if we were in Canada, we'd be able to say we can go this town, this city, no problem. But in the U.S., to find quality rinks that we can put on a good tournament is not as easy as we would think, right?
And we want to balance it for the players, right? Like we understand that there's like an East Coast bias, and plane ticket from Seattle, to Florida, or to if we were to use Utica as an example, might be really expensive for each player, maybe $1,000 per ticket, and we are conscious of that. In everything that we do, we want it to be balanced and fair for all of the players and their families, and we want it to be fair. I think that's like a big thing that always comes up. Like we try and consider these teams that are good teams that we want to see at nationals. How does this affect them? If this team from Maine makes it, like, I mean, those stories from those guys last year getting to nationals was wild. They flew in at like 2 a.m. and then they had to go get a rental car, and then they had to drive, 3 hours, to get to their location. And I mean, just, these are not paid, professional athletes, right? These are guys that are doing it for the love of the game. And they brought family with them. I know lots of the guys from Utica drove their cars out there. We're bringing supplies and gear. So, it's a big deal for us to put on this tournament. It's challenging trying to keep everyone happy and make it balanced and fair for everyone involved. So
Yeah, I mean, and that's one big thing is I mean, I would obviously prefer East Coast. It's a little easier for me, but the nice midway point makes it easier for those of us that have to drive with the equipment. If you have a ton of equipment, it's way easier to drive. Obviously, I would prefer Utica, but I think Ohio I thought was great as far as its 10-hour trip. I don't know how long it took, but I think it was about the same for everybody from Minnesota to drive, and then the flights. I mean, definitely that location worked good. And as I'm just kind of scrolling through here, yeah, you guys have divisions all over the place. It's kind
Yeah.
of hard to find, other than going to the middle, because like you said, when you at the end of the day, you've got a team in Seattle, and if you've got some teams down in the southeast, that's a far flight.
Yeah, and then and there's so many criteria to look at, right? Like all the teams, their locations, the timing, what's going on at the time. Like we didn't realize there was an Ohio State football game when did we did our tournament last year. That was kind of the one hiccup that we didn't foresee till we were already locked and loaded, and the players and teams were able to kind of work around that. But that definitely was a learning experience for us. So we definitely made sure that there was no major concerts or anything where we are going to be in the Midwest.
But the facility too is a huge component of this, right? Like you need a hockey rink, you need the right surface, so it either has to be concrete or it has to be turf. You need 2 doors. You need a penalty
Which a
box.
lot of places don't have 2 doors.
You're gonna need shot clocks. Like depending on where it is in the U.S., like you got to carry goals out there, like 4x6s. Shot clocks. Like there's a lot that goes into this that makes it a tiny bit more complicated than just picking a place like in Dallas and being like, oh, there's 2 pads. Well, it's a soccer facility and there's goal cutouts, and they don't have the cutouts, that the inserts that go to protect the goals. And like you talk to some of these facilities around the country, and they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We have no lines down. We have no creases. We don't have 2 doors. We have single doors. And you're like, oof, and all of that. If you had to play, it would not be the same experience as playing like in a real rink, pad, and I think we are on the hunt for a multi-pad site, with rinks. That's always been our goal over the last 2 years, trying to find the absolute best facilities for the fans and for the players, and so.
And additional challenge is to rotate those rinks too, right? So what do we have? I'd say we probably have about 12 rinks that we've kind of really dug in and looked at them from every aspect and kind of narrowed them down. Like I think we had 2 last year um, in the running. Ohio ended up being it, and this year we had 3 in the running, and a couple criteria knocked them out to get to our final one. And so, but you'll learn more about that as it comes up shortly, we hope.
Yeah, and that's another thing too that people don't always think about is if you go somewhere that had like an outdoor pad or whatever. I never thought about the goals. I just assumed everybody would, have box lacrosse goals, but actually I know a couple hockey rinks by me that would not, and they should have shot clocks though. They play basketball in all of our in like our civic center. We actually have the state championships for high school goes right by us. But yeah, it's all those little things. So what was the biggest surprise that you guys ran into as far as, something that you wish you had thought about ahead of time? It could be either as the GM or as a board member from NABLL or but what was the biggest, oh wait, we didn't think about that?
For the season or for nationals?
I would just say in general, since you guys have been a part of this group together, the Golden Bears.
I'm trying to think like,
Yeah.
Tony and I have been around and around. I feel like, the IBLA experience in our first year was a pretty rough one. So rough that we really felt we owed it to the players to build a better mousetrap. Um, I know that we didn't get everything 100% right last year. There were little things. I think overall we got like 99% of it right. I can remember those guys trying to build the tournament schedule, and looking at Excel spreadsheets 100 different ways, trying to make it fair, trying to balance the pools, looking at strength of schedule. I mean, I can't say enough about the executive group in terms of how they problem solve and how they look at things and how much they want to get it right for the players. I think sometimes we get some feedback that we don't think enough about the players and the GMs and this stuff. But I mean, I really like. I mean, there's very little that we missed at nationals. I feel like. I mean, maybe the locker room thing was probably the one thing we walked away
I was
with.
gonna say the only complaint I've really heard from anybody was the fact that they're, the locker room situation. Other than that, everybody, I don't think you could have really expected anything better.
But we did discuss it. Like we thought about it. We were like it was the most important thing was the surface, the double doors, the penalty box, having the bar upstairs, having the area that we could broadcast games with film. And the decision was it doesn't really have a great locker room. What do we do? And we consider bringing in shipping containers from outside to store gear, creating outdoor locker room type areas, which we just were told it would not be appropriate to have grown men changing clothes, behind shower curtains or whatever outside. And I think tried to make do as best we could. I know it wasn't ideal, but I mean, Tony, maybe there's some, but I can't remember anything that's really caught us off guard. I feel like we tend to try and really look at things through multiple lenses. Yeah, and I mean, we're all like, hey, did you think about this? We have a group chat that we're in every day. We send emails back and forth. We are consistently trying to make sure that we think of these things and get them right. So,
Yeah, I think we've had easily over 60 board meetings in the last year and a half. And it's just every little piece we've kind of dissected. And with 7 people, it was, sometimes it's painstaking because you got 7 different viewpoints coming at it and button heads. But I always say that it gives you those different experiences and it looks at it from so many different perspectives that we're able to kind of come up with a plan A, plan B, and a plan C. And a lot of times you wouldn't have that if you just had like a small 1 or 2 person team leading the whole organization. You would definitely see a branding like a certain way, but I think you get like a 7-person brand in here with kind of really a lot of checks and balances with each other.
Well, the way the group is broke up too, though, you guys kind of all have your own specialties. Like everybody's into different things. Getting to know you guys a little bit, like you learn. Okay, you call this guy for this, you call this guy for that, and you guys have really done a good job of delegating basically who's in charge of what. And it's I would say has been a super successful year. I think another nationals is I don't know. The gameplay out there was phenomenal. I don't think we could have really expected anything better. I thought the talent level was very surprising for a lot of people. I think people thought that the East Coast teams were going to go out there and dominate, and that we saw that wasn't the case. So it was, yeah. I thought the whole thing went great. I am so glad that we've all gotten to do it together, and we're going to continue to do this. Now, one big thing that we were kind of talking about earlier is anybody who's in the league is allowed to send the footage in. And this show, we mainly want to start being able to clip highlights. So all your photographers and stuff, whoever runs that for the league, this isn't just for you guys, but make sure we get a hold of Tim. There's going to be a Google Drive folder. Everybody put your games in there for the week, or your highlight clips or whatever. I'll go through and I'm going to edit them up. So we're going to play that over the top, and that will be essentially while we're talking, we can kind of go through the records. But what we really need, and we've all hammered this time after time after time, is people please fill out the website. We can keep you up to date. We'll get the highlights. We'll make everything look good. Get it all cleaned up and looking pretty. But guys, it's been an hour.
Wow, that was quick. Greg, you always keep it rolling. You keep it moving.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Lots of hot air from the three of us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, we've even gotten to spend some time talking now that we've done this quite a few times, and yeah, I love it. I love talking with you guys. I love what you do down there. I love that if I wear the Golden Bears hat around box lacrosse, somebody's gonna know it, even though it's a team from Virginia. So Lax and I guys are yelling at me. They're like, "Hey, Golden Bears," and I've seen a couple guys at Can-Am that
They
even
like
know
our
it.
memes. They like our memes.
Yes. You guys are definitely doing it on fire. I appreciate all that you guys are doing for the sport to help grow it. Thank you very much. And everybody, where do we find out about Golden Bear information? I find it all on Instagram, but I don't know if you guys recommend anywhere else.
Well, we have
And send Tony TikToks. It's really you want to send Tony.
Well, we have a website, but I'm trying to redevelop it right now, so it'll be goldenbearsva.com, I'm pretty sure, or golden.bears.va.com is where we have it, but we're updating the information. But Instagram is basically the primary where we get most of our.
Got to work on your sales, Tony. So we have an email address, goldenbears.va, right, at Gmail.
Yeah.
They can contact us directly. We have a Twitter. We have a Facebook. I think goldenbears.va is the Facebook address. Yes, no?
Yes.
And then we're going to update that website. I noticed a couple weeks ago our website from last year was still up. So
well,
our players love it. Our players love it because they're like, when they go to get information for the season, they're like, Hodge, Tony, which set of information is accurate?
Well, we do a lot of chats. We have chat groups with our guys, and that's where we disseminate most of the information. But these guys are like, everybody has a little different flair. This person likes Instagram. This person likes Twitter. This person likes email. This person likes phone and fax.
We know that certain people don't open emails, so we send them smoke signals. It's great.
Yeah.
That's amazing. All right. Thanks, guys, so much. And for everybody else tuning in, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Please make sure you start sending in the highlight clips. Season gets underway. We will have live NABLL Lacrosse. Oh, yes, and congratulations. The NABLL is playing on Lacrosse TV. We didn't even talk about that, but the Utica Yeti and Paul Necker will be our first NABLL live stream. Actually, I lied. They won't be because they're not even playing in the first game. So the first game is going to be the Oswego Riverhawks.
Yeah. Is it Thousand Islands too?
Or no, yeah. So the Thousand Islands is playing Paper City Oaks. I don't know how we got that screwed up where those two teams did not come to the battle on the barge. Hopefully next year we get that fixed. But yes, NABLL has 3 games streaming on Lacrosse TV Saturday at 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. So tune in, everybody, on Sling TV and at Utica Yeti YouTube channel. But thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Yes. Is it the orange package or the blue package on Sling?
I have no idea. I think it's all
Because I have slings, so I'll have to check.